Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But
we are concerned about trouble and trend of irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 Yeah, I wonder if it's extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Extremely dangerous for somebody.
Yeah, somebody indeed. Hey guys, how you doing? We are back with another wonderful, awesome, glorious episode of CosmoVision. This week we are talking about not being surprised by sin. So, I'm just going to give some few quick plugins, and we're going to jump right onto this bad boy. Guys, you can follow us on social media. That is in Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, all the things. You can also just look at us at the link tree is always there, solo.to/the CTDW. You can find all of our stuff there. It should be labeled somewhere around here. And you can listen to us on all major podcast platforms, which include Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, so on and so forth. Find us on any of those that you like to listen to and like to hear. And finally, please, we are pushing hard, pushing good. Subscribe to us anywhere you would like to. Definitely, if you can do it on Rumble, great. If you want to do it on YouTube, awesome. I am in the process of uploading all of our stuff there. And if you want to support us on Patreon, you can do that for as little as $5 a month. Just head to patreon.com/thectdw. As you will notice, our handle is the CTDW just about everywhere. I won't waste any more of your time. Let's get right on to it, guys. Thanks for being patient and listening to that little spiel at the beginning, as always. Apparently, it's extremely dangerous to our democracy, but we're a republic, so I don't know whose democracy that is. I'll let Shelley take it away and why we decided to start with this.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Disinformation, misinformation, or maybe it's just the information that you don't like. Ricky didn't mention that we're on Twitter.
Oh, I did say you're not.
Maybe we won't be anymore because today happens to be June 1st. And almost 3 hours ago, Matt Walsh's What is a Woman came out. And after I did some digging, I was able to watch it on Twitter just for spite because I know I can get it elsewhere. I couldn't comment. I couldn't retweet. I couldn't even like it. I couldn't do anything because they had limited the reach. They didn't limit the speech. They limited the reach. And we'll see if those, at the time I watched it, there were 55,000 views. We'll see how we're punished on Twitter because that video might be a threat to our democracy. Or I think that's code. I think threat to our democracy is code for doesn't match our narrative. I think that's what they mean.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely what they.
And so I had a little bit of fear watching the video, not because I was afraid of what the video said. I've seen enough snippets of it to have pretty much watched the whole thing. But fear of being shadow banned, fear of being put in Twitter jail. What I shared a video with our friends, just our small group the other day, and I was like, man, I'm so tempted. I want to put this on my Facebook, but I'm so afraid that then they're gonna ban me on Facebook. I'm gonna go to Facebook timeout, which, you know what? I don't care. I Facebook so that we can answer people's comments to our reels on Insta and on Facebook. That is the main reason I ever go there. I spend more time on the CTDW page than I do on my own page. It just it just is what it is, you know. And I know we've established I'm an old grandma dinosaur. I can't put my hands. That's my joke to my husband whenever they're like old people, like our last clip. You know, I'm one of the people you will never plug me in. I'm old enough. I read 1984 back probably before 1984 because, well, you know, I read it in book form and I've got it in a box in my garage. I get frustrated with what the world terms, what American media, Western media, we'll go that way, with what Western media terms as terrorism. I'm not saying terrorism doesn't exist. It obviously does. But I think the biggest American terroristic threat is the media. They inspire terror on purpose. It is what they do. And basically tonight our topic is don't be afraid of the big bad news. Maybe that could be our title, Rick.
Could be.
Who's afraid of the big bad news? The big bad news.
Yeah, it's we decided to start with that particular opening. And Shell actually said all of this except for the word itself. It's groupthink in common speech, right? But back in the 90s or the 80s, we would have called it a hive mind. And that's mind. I think that expression is gaining more traction again because of AI and everything. But first thing I think of when I think of hive mind are the Borg, and the Borg.
Considering the fact that your mom's a Trekkie,
that's true. Her email is ridiculous. I'm not going to say it on air, but it has to do with being a Trekkie, which is kind of weird. Mom's so weird. But you can probably, guys, thank her for the reason we started this podcast, because you know, she's a sci-fi thinker. She likes to think outside the box like me.
Yes.
That being said, hive mind with the Borg was always about a prime directive, and they were assimilated, which is a word that I think also applies here. All these media conglomerates are, have been assimilated into a single machine, and there's not much else to do. Now, the clip that I played was loosely titled, I don't know the official name, but it's Anchors at Sinclair-owned local news stations. And it's just a clip of them all put together. It's a glorious clip, I might add. But it just is to highlight that not only should we not think the same, right? The Bible tells us clearly we are not called to think the same. We are called to go against the grain.
That's right.
So that's one part of it. But the other part is to not buy what's being sold and to stop sensationalizing garbage. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. We're actually pulling from a clip from a fellow YouTuber who I would say I admire greatly. He's done a lot of great work in the field of just media in general and really presenting the gospel in a palatable, palpable, and practical way. The 3 P's. There we go. So this is actually a clip that we're going to kind of go through, Shelley and I, as CosmoVision is. And this is something that's actually been heavy on my heart for a few weeks now. I've been actually probably longer than that, probably about half a year. I've been thinking, why are Christians sensationalizing stuff? Stop being afraid, right? Because it's all programming, which we've talked about before. But number 2, the next step is stop being surprised. Stop reacting to garbage all the time. I mean, of course you have an initial reaction. Everybody does. But our job is not to keep reacting to stuff, but we should be the change, right? God calls us to be lights.
Be proactive.
Correct. God calls us to be lights, not to be, how's it? My pastor always says, be a thermostat, not a thermometer, right? You're not supposed to gauge. You're not supposed to gauge the temperature. You're supposed to set the temperature. So unless Shell has anything to say, I'm actually going to hop to that clip real quick.
No, go ahead.
You good?
Yeah.
Good like gravy? Okay. All right, let's see.
Only if it's made
Maybe
well.
not gravy.
Okay. Oh, I like gravy.
It's all gravy. Here we go. I'm going to stop real quick there. Let's take this guy off the screen real quick. I think that's a good point. A lot of times we waste a lot of time trying to raise awareness about something, when in reality, God tells us a lot of times, do just pray and live a quiet life and stop worrying about it. I'm not saying we shouldn't go out and, make known this kind of stuff and everything, but you guys will see here in a second, like a lot of their advice is to not draw attention to this stuff. And something that I've been feeling for a while now is that Christians sensationalize everything, man. They want to sensationalize what the left is doing, the left in particular. And not that I'm, it's almost impossible to stay out of the political spectrum on this one. Just kind of dive headfirst into it. I mean, leftism is practically synonymous with sin. I mean, there's very little at this point that is salvageable, for the gospel, because it's such extreme views. I mean, just so over the top views that it's almost unsalvageable. Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to say anything else, Shel. I'm letting you kind of guide.
Let's continue. Well, you know what? Let me just read Ephesians 5:11. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. And there's a fine line there. There's a line between exposing and giving free publicity. And there's a thing. Don't be surprised at sin, but don't wink at it either. A friend of ours, Philip, likes to sing this song in worship sometimes. It says, when I see pictures of tragedy, don't let it get old to me. When I see shattered integrity, don't let it get old to me. Give me eyes of compassion. Gosh, normally I know all of the words. Basically, I don't want to grow cold to it. I don't want to become hardened to it. Oh yeah, that's just how everything is. So it's a balance again, like everything else. It's a balance in life, and I don't want sin to become. I don't want to become numb to sin, any sin. I don't want to be numb to my own sin, because that's when it becomes a habit, and it's why we ask God to show us ourselves, right?
Right.
See if there is any unclean way in me. David said in Psalm 139, towards the end of the chapter, it's a balance. We don't want to bring him glory. We don't want to give. And we all sin. It's the things that, man, are like blatant. One of those T-shirts, and the one that's geared more towards the kids. I can't even remember what it says now. It was so offensive. One of them was like, "Not today, Jesus."
Something like Satan loves my pronouns or something like that.
Oh, Satan respects pronouns.
Pronouns, that's what it is.
Yeah. Satan doesn't respect anything, idiot. Sorry. Maybe I should be. I'm really not sorry. That's idiotic. He doesn't respect anything. He is out to kill, steal, and destroy. He doesn't respect nothing. There's nothing good about him. Nothing benevolent about him. And I don't want to think it's okay. And you know what? Apparently, people got angry enough to already cause Target $8 billion in losses. 10
billion.
Oh, is it 10 now? Well, yesterday when I was sitting at a favorite fast food place of mine that doesn't serve cow stuff, my phone said 8 billion at that time when I was reading the news article. So
I literally saw
my lemonade.
Yeah. No, I saw a little bit about that, and it was today, because I've been following it. I followed Jeremy on the Courting. Woo! Shout out to Jeremy on the Courting. And he was talking about that he was actually looking at the stock, and the stock has dropped almost $30 a share. That is massive money.
Awesome. Christians, you have power when you get incensed enough to not go someplace that's convenient. Maybe it has your favorite whatever's there, and you speak with your dollars. It has effect. It has. They went and they have changed their policy. I mean, they're not going to do away with the clothes. They're just going to discount them or sell them towards the back of the departments or whatever. But a point was made. There was a shot across the bow, and it was successful. And so we have to still do what we are called to do, and that's overcoming evil with good. So we do have to stand up. We do need to let each other know. But you know what? Everybody doesn't need to see every single picture. You don't need to give this designer's web address. Nobody. What do you need it for? Nobody needs it, and that's how though that apparel is still selling so well for the designer, because it people can't be, hey, there's this thing and it is detrimental to our society. It's offensive to God, which is really what should matter the most. Because God is not offended by nothing. God is not offended by things just because. He's offended by things because it goes against his majesty, and B, because it hurts us. Almost invariably, the things that that he has issue with hurts us, hurts our own selves, or hurts somebody else. And I really, that is what he is about, and that's what being incensed about this is. But you don't need to save the pictures on your phone, screenshot them, and show them to all your friends. Talk about something else. Or you know what? If you're really gonna you hate this, then pray against it.
Yeah.
That's what does he say? Will heal land if you boycott Target, if you boycott Bud Light, if you boycott, I don't know, whoever else.
Dylan Mulvaney.
Whatever. Yeah. And like him, he is, or I can't even. Dylan has gotten notoriety because conservatives and a lot of Christians in that bunch keep talking about Dylan, and Dylan is making money off of this. And Dylan is getting the notoriety that Dylan has always wanted. I'm not going to use any pronoun. I will just say Dylan. So, there is a way to do things, and there is a way to not do things, or to
absolutely to go about being effective.
Right. I would say go ahead, play the next part.
Bring it on. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there, he's about to step into that real quick. That same verse. I want to highlight something real quick that Zuby just said. Sorry, I forgot to tell you guys. This clip is from the interview between Ruslan and Zuby, and Zuby says, where you put your money or where you put your energy tends to grow. I think that's
right.
Brilliant.
Feed the dog you want to win.
In the early days of the internet, one of the things that we would always say, and it's kind of dead now because people thrive on controversy, and that is not a Christian value. That is not, forget that. I hate value. Hate that word value so much. That is not a Christian action. That is not Christian conduct. We used to say back in the day, don't feed the troll. And now the only thing we do is feed the troll. We got like 40 trolls under the bridge that we're like throwing chicken bones to all day long, like over and over and over. And sometimes it's not the chicken bone, like bringing whole entire roasts to these trolls. I mean, we're just bringing all of it, and that's why. And I think what's so weird to me is, and I know I think they're gonna go on to explain this, but in theory, it comes out of a good place. Like, hey, I'm just trying to raise awareness so that we know what to protect our kids from, or so we know how to confront this thing, or so we know how to, because, hear me clearly. We are living in a time where you cannot be neutral. I was just talking to Shell before the broadcast, and I said, I'm going to quote Ravi Zacharias on this one, that nature abhors a vacuum. So it was only a matter of time if we took Christ out of everything, if we took all of Christendom out of everything, something was going to fill that gap. It was going to happen no matter what, whether that's a secular religion like what we're watching happen, which is actually not secular at all, if we're being really honest. It's pseudo-paganism. It is. It's pseudo-scientism mixed with paganism. It's exactly what it is. Hey, what's up, guys? Like what you hear? Want to hear more? Well, then don't waste any more time. Head over to Patreon at patreon.com/thectdw to hear this full episode. It's only $5 a month to become an exclusive member with special access to all our full episodes. Please like, subscribe, and rate us 5 stars wherever you listen to podcasts. See you at the Christian Dark Web. But he is so right. Like, we spend so much time trying to lambaste the left or crazy ideas, not even crazy ideas, people that espouse these ideas. And so we give a huge platform to this idea of whatever they're talking about. And I think that tension actually comes from not only a good place about awareness, but also it comes from a Western value that is ingrained in the United States, which is we are here to dialogue. Guys, let me be very clear. The time for dialogue is long gone.
Well, and Paul says,
but
right. Well, there's difference between come let us reason together and what Paul tells us, sorry, I can never give you all the scriptures because they just come as I have thoughts. 2 Timothy 2:23, stay away from foolish and vain arguments because they lead unto quarrels. They're unfruitful.
Yeah.
I mean, he tells Titus a similar thing to avoid vain controversies. Now, notice he doesn't say avoid arguments or avoid controversy. He says avoid foolish and stupid arguments or controversies.
That's a good point.
Because there's a reason for it.
Right.
Right. You will not convince anybody to change their point of view in a Facebook fight or via the world's best thought out tweet. All that you do is you say it and you look at the people who love what you had to say and they're in your echo chamber, man.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think a lot of that, and that I think that the internet causing this self-inflatedness comes from that ability to have complete anonymity, or practically complete anonymity. And I know we could get into a whole other slew of conversations about privacy and stuff like that, and why they're important and how anonymity is useful. I'm not really trying to go there. What I'm really getting to is that this inflated sense of self-worth really does come from this power to remain absolutely anonymous and autonomous and take no responsibility. You can just throw things into the ether and there's no consequence for it. And that,
right, especially an immediate consequence
thing. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think from here, what I want to do, actually, now that we're sharing this kind of stuff, we're talking about what we should be fighting. Discernment. That's what I was going to talk about.
That's great.
I think it's really good and really useful because it's funny because I was actually really thinking about this issue for a long time, because I was very under this. And I want to I want you guys to hear me say it clearly again. Stop being surprised by sin. Stop it. Quit it. It's going to get worse. Like, people are crazy. They are being incited to devil worship on a regular basis. Don't be surprised that that's going to happen, and much, much worse things. They're all about changing the identity of who their actual physical and emotional and spiritual being is. So stop being surprised that they do ludicrous garbage. Having said that, I was faced with, in this clip, really, one, not being afraid, which I think is your first step, then stop being surprised. And then thirdly, how do we stop being surprised? Or how do we engage in useful arguments? How do we engage in useful reasoning? And that was something I had not thought through until, Shell started talking about this just now. And it's asking God for discernment. It's legit asking the Holy Spirit to guide you. And furthermore, it's trusting and having faith that He will. It's one thing to say, oh, God, give me discernment, just, but when you approach a situation that is intentionally controversial, I'm not saying, go out and pick fights. What I'm saying is, when you go into a situation in which that there's skin in the game and you have something to lose, that's where the Holy Spirit's ready to work. And that's where the Holy Spirit's ready to speak to you and give you discernment on what to do and how to engage with culture and how to engage with people. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say about that.
And there is a way to engage. The word tells us overcome evil with good.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I like
just
how
said that, right?
I don't know if he said that, but he said something really close to it. He said, I don't want to be known for what I'm against,
but rather what I'm for.
And I love that.
Exactly. Absolutely right.
And if you go through the Gospels and you look at how Jesus very seldom talked about what he was against.
Yeah.
That's not.
That's very true.
Man, that's not.
Well, you know what,
he wasn't moved against sin. He was moved by compassion for people.
Yeah. 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 And you know what? It's so important that you say that, because as I'm actually thinking about that and processing this, from actually just from a worldly business even sense, right? Like, you can't advance your company or your idea or your plan if you're always meditating on the negative. You can't do that. One, the Bible tells us it's not fruitful, right? We don't want to think on those things. And actually, it's probably a good place to bring this in. Philippians 4:8 says, finally, brethren, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is right, pure, lovely, of good repute, if there's any excellence, and if anything worthy of praise, dwell on these things. That's where our time should be spent, right? And I'm not telling you to put your head in the sand. I'm telling you, see it for what it is, and pray for it. Just like, I think what did we mention Mother Teresa last time? Mother Teresa says that when she received a book from an atheist that wrote this whole thing about how her God can't exist, this and that and the other. She read the whole thing, and when interviewed, like, what did you think? She says, basically mocking her entire life. She says, I think I just need to pray harder. And so,
I mean, that's it. We don't quit praying. We can, because here's what happens. And, you hear this a lot in the workplace, but don't complain horizontally. Complain vertically. And so you and I can harp about it all day long, and we can incense one another about things, or I can go to God and I can pray. We can pray together, where two of us are touching something in prayer. God is there in our midst. He is there. There is power. If one can put 1,000 to flight, 1,000 what to flight, you say? What we wrestle against. And 10,000, well, then you want to get your people, because it's an exponential increase. And so we can complain to each other, or we can pray with each other. And I mean, that's where power is. We can take this from the realm that we're in straight up to the throne room of God, where things really get done, and then you remember, oh, your will be done here. Like you are already talking about it up there. That's where the power to really affect changes. Yes, again, we still overcome evil with good. People don't care what we know until they know that we care.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's a big deal too. You can go stand in front of an abortion clinic and scream, abortion is murder, abortion is murder. What does that do? That makes whoever is around, whoever is part of that, dig their heels in. And people have a point when they say, well, are you going to do something to help raise this kid? Yeah, I will. I will. But you know what? If you're not willing to say, yeah, I will, then don't go stand out front with a placard, man. Don't.
Correct.
Because, and I'm not saying don't protect unborn babies' lives, because protect unborn babies' lives. What I'm saying is do what Jesus would really do. And he wouldn't say, figure it out on your own. That's not who he is. And he wouldn't just shun somebody because he didn't like what they were doing. What was it you were telling me that
about the guy at the gym?
Yep, the guy at the gym.
This dude, super ripped dude at the gym, was talking to some guy that was clearly not as well in shape, and the guy was chatting with him, and he was telling him, I don't know if the other guy that this dude that was ripped, he was very clearly a Christian because of the way he was talking, because he was basically giving him the gospel. And he was talking about how he had evangelized. There was this guy that I think it was him that was he was evangelizing in the street, and this guy was holding the joint, and he was smoking the joint and everything, and kind of like in between hits, he says to the guy, he says, "Hey, he said, well, this Jesus, do I need to stop smoking weed to follow him?" And the guy goes, "No." He goes, "You can be saved right now." He goes, "Here's the deal, brother. You come as you are, and then the Holy Spirit comes into you and then starts telling you the stuff you need to get rid of." He's like, it's the same thing as when you work out here in the gym. You don't come in shape, and you don't come with a good diet. You start doing exercise, and then your body tells you, hey, I don't need this stuff. I don't want this stuff because it's not helpful for you. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yep. Yep, that's how it is. We don't, I mean, that's how you change people. You let them know, you know what? I don't like everything, but I like you. I'm for you. I'm willing to walk with you. Yeah, that's what Paul says. Paul doesn't say, do as I say. He says, come walk with me. Come walk with me as I follow Jesus.
I am all things to all men. Yeah. I actually would like, speaking of fighting in the right ways and in the right places, I would like to share something real quick that actually happened to me last night, or early this morning, I guess. I had a dream that I think was very relevant spiritually, and I want to share it. So I'm going to do that now. With Shelly's permission.
I'm excited because all that he told me is that he had this dream and he wanted to tell me about it on camera. So I don't know what it is, but it's
a blind reaction.
To find out with everybody else.
Merari was the only one I told. I'm going to tell you as best I can remember it because I'm sure there's details that have gone at this point, but so I should just put it out there. I am not the guy that dreams. I don't ever remember my dreams. So if I remember a dream, it's always like, oh, wow, this happened. Or like I might vaguely remember something happening. No, this was like, I was there. Like, I know I was there. It was crazy. So I don't remember how we got there, but the point is that we were in somewhere in Asia, like in a park plaza type place. And there was, just kind of trees here and there and big cement, like stone blocks, I guess we'll call them, just like tiles. And there was a bunch of people just kind of sitting there, and I was one of them, kind of on the edge. And it was, again, it was a pretty vivid dream. As I was sitting there talking to people, I don't even remember who they were, nor do I know if I know them. And this girl, I think I only kind of realized that we were in Asia because she was very, very clearly Asian. Looked like she was a little bit older, maybe not very old, but she had kind of grayish, blackish hair, like kind of like my stubble. And but on up here, not here. And so she comes up and she literally goes, no joke, she goes, "I need a Christian." And it was the weirdest thing ever. I was like, and I didn't say anything. I was like, this is real weird. Like, I didn't know what to think, I was like, okay. And nobody really responded to her. They were just kind of sitting there, and I just kind of was looking at her and was like weirded out. I didn't know what to do. I was just like, And so this guy, and this is where it was super weird because it was like a cross-cultural weird stuff. This guy that was dressed, and he was an African man, had not a completely shaved head, but just short hair, just kind of a typical African look. He had on, only thing I remember specifically, he had on a green army colored vest, like an army green colored vest. Jacket. And it went back, I guess, just a little bit below his waist. And he walked up to her, and she got into a stance, like one leg stretched all the way out, her arms on both sides, and she kneeled down like she was going to fight this guy. She was ready to go. She gets in that position, and he looks at her, and he goes, "It's time." And he just kind of, and she gets out of her position. No, he goes, "It's time." And he kind of just chuckles. He goes, "It's time." And she gets out of her position, like her ready to fight and, break some skulls position, hangs her head and just starts walking away with this guy. It was so crazy. And I was like, what? And I watched this whole thing happen, and nobody else seemed to even no recognition of anything going on. And I was like, what in the world? So no joke. They start to get like a good distance away, and I get up and I'm like, hey, where you going? And so I start to, not like booking, and I wasn't sprinting, but I was like making a concerted running effort to catch up to them. And as soon as I caught up to this guy, I'm going to stop telling my story right now. If you would like to hear the rest, here's a word. Thank you for watching this episode of CosmoVision from the Christian Theological Dark Web Network. Follow us on social media and keep in contact. If you would like to support us and get access to all of our content, please do so at patreon.com/thectdw. This has been a production of CTDW Studios. We thank you for your time. God bless, Shalom, and Maranatha.